Hi, my name is Matt Hendrickson. I'm Vice President with DIO USA. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this full arch course this morning. We're really glad that you can join us. I want to kind of cover a few things from a business perspective. Our goal and our mission here at DIO and DIOnavi is to help you run the most successful implant practice possible, both financially and clinically. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today, obviously we'll let the doctors go through the clinical information that we'll be covering today. But I wanted to take just a few minutes as we got started and talk about the financial aspect of that and how we want to try and help you reach our mission of running the most successful practice financially and clinically from a financial perspective. So for just the next couple of minutes, I want to kind of just talk about dentistry as a business and as it pertains to your office. And a lot of times we have a tendency to forget this, but dentistry really is a business without question. And in reality, it's a pretty good sized business. In fact, it's a bigger business than most people realize. And when you stop and think about just how big of a business this is. And first of all, just think about the invested capital you already have into your practice. There's quite a bit. I mean, just in the building alone, the equipment, your insurance, not to mention the education. It's hard to get through a dental school with less than $500,000. Today is almost a bargain with $500,000 debt to get through dental school alone. So when you start adding all of these things up, the investment into your business is significant. And as a result, it really bears some taking a few minutes to think about it from a business perspective. So, how much do you figure you got invested in your practice? Is it $350,000, $750,000, million and a half? It's actually quite a bit. In fact, it's going to be more than any of those if you've been in practice for more than a few years, and I'll show you why. So according to the ADA in 2019, according to their statistics, you're invested about $500,000 just on opening the practice for construction. That's not the building itself. That's not the ownership of the building. That's just build out and getting it ready to go. Equipment and supplies, working capital to get you going. You're going to be into it already, $500,000 just for those pieces, but that's a really small piece. And as I mentioned, it's not just a small business, but it's actually a really big business. And if you ever wonder why are DSOs so prominent and why are business people from outside of the clinical aspect of dentistry so excited about getting involved in dentistry, whether you're part of a DSO or owner of a DSO or somebody who would prefer to stay in private practice, it's important to think about this and understand why it's such an attractive business from the outside and why it's such a great opportunity for you, regardless of which piece of those that you fall into. So as we think about dentistry as a business, in addition to some of that $500,000 of startup costs that I mentioned, take just a second to think about your overhead. So if you think about the lease space, so your monthly condo fees, if you're in a condominium, or monthly lease on the space, or mortgage on the property if you're owning the property, your utilities, your payroll, your depreciation, according to the ADA in 2019, since 2020 was kind of a weird year to calculate this. So back in 2019, according to the ADA, the average dental practice is spending $38,000 a month in just overhead and monthly overhead expenses. So if you take that $500,000 investment startup capital, you throw in $38,000 a month of overhead, over 5 years, you've spent close to $3 million on just an average solo practice according to the ADA numbers. And again, this still does not factor in things such as your education and all of the other stuff that you've got built into that. So it's really a significant business, and it's important that you really think of it as such, of a multi-million-dollar business. So from a business perspective, again, it's a lot of money invested, it's a lot of time, capital, and overhead that you're paying. So it's important to understand from a business perspective what you're utilizing, what's the utilization of your capital in your business. Again, this is why it's such an attractive investment for business people or DSOs to get involved in dentistry, because the average dental office, again, according to estimates, only runs at 50% utilization of your capital. So you've got all of this money invested and it's only getting used about 50% of the time. So what that means is in theory, you could pretty much double the production you're doing with very little to, in theory, no increase in overhead. And in reality, it's going to be a small amount, of course, and to get to 100% utilization of capital. Now, the reality is no business really should be running at 100% either. If you're a business and you're running at 100% of your utilization, that leaves no opportunity for illness, breakdowns of equipment, emergencies, all kinds of things. So businesses will recommend that generally a business should be running about 85% of its capacity is a good target rate. But that still means is that the average dental practice, according to the ADA, has 35% more utilization of their capital that they could use or increase their production or better use that investment without really any significant increases in overhead. And again, this is why business people who look at dentistry get excited. That's why there's IPOs taking place for DSOs, because this is a great profitable business, a huge opportunity for you to be much more profitable. So that's also supported by, in 2019, the ADA survey said that the number one concern, not just a top concern, but the number one concern for 20% of dentists surveyed said that their biggest concern is that they're not busy enough. And again, so that supports this excess capacity that's there for you to leverage in your business. And again, that's 20% select, that's their highest concern, not just one of their top 5 concerns. So the question then has got to become, how do I utilize that excess time, that excess capacity, and what should I utilize it for? What's the most effective way for me to use it? And how do I make sure that I can use it? Okay, so to look at that, I want to take another view of this as well to put this in perspective, and that is an actual take-home dollars, which really is what matters to most of us at the end of the day, is how much money can I actually take home from my employment, from my business, from the efforts that I'm putting in. So I want to throw out a couple of other numbers to be thinking about as we go through this. And again, according to the ADA, in 2019, the average take home for a dentist in the United States, general dentist, was $190,000. Now, I actually rounded this up to 250. So 190 is the ADA's number, but I figure, most of us it's probably safe to assume that a lot of solo practitioners are, maybe they're paying for their, automobiles that they get some personal use of, or they're paying for their family's cell phone bills or some things like that. So I actually even pad it. And let's say we'll call it $250,000 is the average, which in reality, it's much lower than that. But if you look at that, how can I use this excess capacity to drastically increase this take-home pay? So this graph that you'll see off the right in the next several slides kind of depicts a few things. First of all, the first column is the ADA's current average dental practice revenue, at about $750,000, a little under $750,000 in production. The next 2 bars are what we think we can help you increase that to using DIOnavi implants, and what we think we can help you increase that to using the DIOnavi full arch procedures. The second section is the one that really matters, take-home pay, net income. This is the ADA's $190,000. This is what we can confidently jump that to by helping you through our become a DIOnavi practice, getting that up to $500,000, or a full arch practice, bumping that up significantly. And you can see how the increase in overhead for these additional increases in production in your practice are very small, again, because we can use that excess capacity and we want to use it in the most effective way possible. So the best way to utilize this is really to utilize that 35% excess capacity is unquestionable through implants and implant-related procedures. Implant-related procedures are one of the highest producing procedures per minute, especially if you're using DIOnavi, because we can help you produce so much faster and so much easier that it's definitely one of the highest producing procedures per minute. It's safe, again, especially when you're using DIOnavi. We make the procedures so safe and predictable and comfortable for the patient, and it also makes it significantly less stressful for you as the clinician as a result. More comfortable, especially when we're using DIOnavi, because we're not doing flap surgery. Pretty much everything we're going to do will be flapless with no incisions and no sutures. Predictable, as I mentioned, because we're planning everything digitally backwards. So it's all very predictable. And best of all, patients are asking for implants. We're no longer in the early stages of implants where we had to convince the patient that they should be considering implant procedures. At this point, they know about implants and they're asking for it. It's the perfect storm for you as a dental business to really capitalize on this fantastic procedure. It's excellent for the patient. It's comfortable, it's predictable, it's safe, and it's what the patients want. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity to use that excess capacity instead of just trying to fill your schedule with other, things, cleanings and fillings and things like that, yeah, you could use that excess capacity, but it's not a good dollar per minute procedure. Let's use it for something that's going to bring the most most to your bottom line. So to put some numbers to that, what we find is the typical DIOnavi customer is charging about $3,500 per placement through temporization. But one of the unique things with DIOnavi is we can help you show the value to your patient, things that they care about, and they're going to be willing to pay that higher procedure fee. So our average office we're seeing is at $3,500 in production. And with that, they have a set overhead fee. So rather than having, this implant procedure be kind of an unknown on how much you're going to make at the end of the day, because you don't know what your lab fees are going to be, you don't know what custom abutment's going to cost, and if you're going to have to do anything tricky to restore it, we provide a fixed cost of under $600 for our case in a box, where you get the DIOnavi, where we do the digital design ahead of time for you, where we simulate the entire surgery, prosthetically driven planning, so we get the ideal location of the final restoration with no surprises. We fabricate the surgical guide, provide the implant, a digital abutment or even a custom abutment if necessary, and a screw-retained temporary crown on most cases without any surprises. You have fixed overhead. So you know exactly when you sit down with a patient, you know what your procedure cost is going to be. Another big benefit for you as a business to be able to do that. And by using this procedures and by us planning it ahead of time, most DIOnavi surgeries are completed from the time the patient's anesthetized to the time you're finished, less than 10 minutes. It's amazing how fast these surgeries go. And again, that's not just placing the implant, but that would be placing the implant, putting in an abutment and a temporary crown on top of it, all at one time. That's how we can add a lot of net income to your practice doing implants. The big and exciting thing, and the thing that I know a lot of you are here today to learn specifically, is the full arch treatment. And it gets exponentially better, obviously, with this treatment. So the typical price that we see across the United States that doctors are charging per arch for a fixed full arch restoration is about $25,000. We can provide from DIOnavi full arch, we can again give you a known cost that goes along with that fee. So one of the big problems with full arch right now, and one of the reasons that people, pretty much most dentists, certainly any dentists who are doing implants, have a desire to do full arch treatment, but there's some things they're worried about. Obviously, there's some fears they have clinically, which we're going to talk about later today. But there's also a big fear about, the entire process, the prosthetic design and fabrication, all of these different variables, and how many, provisionals do I need to make? How many adjustments do I need to change? What if I need to make, special titanium bar this way or whatever? I mean, those lab bills can really rack up really fast, and you get a pretty big variable on what that cost could be. With the DIOnavi full arch, what we've done, again, is our mission to help you succeed financially, is we've given you a fixed cost. So for an all-on 4 case, for roughly $6,000 for a full arch, you're going to get everything that you need. So here's the standard case pricing for the DIOnavi full arch. So basically, if you're going to do an all-on 4 case, it's $6,200. That includes the computer simulation and digital design of the restorations. That includes the guide fabrication, the implants, the multi-unit, multi-angle abutments that are necessary, the provisional prosthesis, as well as unlimited provisionals if needed along through the way, and your final prosthesis in PMMA material is going to be $6,200 for an all-on 4, and then it's basically another $700 for each if you go from an all-on 4 to 5 or 6 or 7, and that's again because we're adding another implant, more abutments, and things like that. But it's very predictable. It's set, and you know that no matter what happens with that case, that's your cost. Now, there are a couple of other add-on options that you can include that are not part of it. So if you want the final in zirconia, it's going to be $700 extra to $850, again, depending on how many implants we have to design that to attach to. But still for under $7,000, you can do an all-on 4 full arch, everything that you need, unlimited provisional prosthetics, all the way through final with the zirconia for under $7,000. If you want, for some reason, a printed model, that's a little bit extra. We can do a bone reduction guide. So if bone reduction is necessary, which we'll talk about clinically as well, it's only another $100, and we will provide the guide for the bone reduction step as well, and then still have the surgical guide for the final placements and the immediate temporization. If you want to upgrade to the UV active implant, which we strongly recommend, and I'll talk a little bit about more of that in a minute about why, then it's $100 per implant upcharge. So that's what our typical pricing is. However, we also have special pricing if you're interested in becoming one of our partner clinics. So we're setting up a limited number of DIOnavi full arch partner clinics in different parts of the country. And for that partnership, you get a couple of things. One, we literally become your partner from a marketing perspective, and we're helping you drive, not only have the items you need to complete the procedures, but actually make sure you have the patience to also reach your goals. In addition to that, you do get a discounted fee for being a partner office. So you can see the same items, you drop several $100s per arch. So you're now only $5,800 for an all-on-4, $6,600 for a 5, and a little bit more for each. So we'll talk a little bit more about that partner one option as well. And as I mentioned, discounted case pricing, joint marking, and the goal. What our goal is for as a partner clinic, our goal for our piece is to drive 40 interested patients to you per month. And so through our marketing partnership, and I'll show you some specific examples, we will be helping to pay to get 40 interested patients in contact with your staff per month. Now, that's not 40 new patients. Obviously, your staff then needs to make sure that those people actually come in and show up for their consultations. You do a good job on the consultation, and they move forward with treatment. But we also provide support to train you and your staff on each one of those steps. Again, it's a true partner relationship. We don't succeed unless you succeed. So I'll show you some more about how that works. But if we take a step back and we look at, if you increase your 35% capacity, by doing the DIOnavi full arch, the beauty of the DIOnavi full arch from a business perspective, as well as a clinical, and we'll get into this, but we streamline also your time. So it's not just a set fee on a great procedure, but we're going to minimize the time required to provide this treatment, cutting the appointments from, a typical 8, 9, 10 appointment process for a typical full arch case to 4, from start to finish. And the first appointment, literally all you need to do on your first appointment, which could be your consultation appointment, if a patient decides they want to move forward with full arch, you're simply going to get all of their records. You upload them to DIOnavi through the DIOnavi full arch portal, upload all your records and photos, fill out your online prescription, and then we go to work doing the design and sending that back and making sure you sign off on the design. We fabricate the guide, we create the temporary prosthetic, everything, a prosthesis, everything that you need to sit down and deliver the implants and a fully screw retained provisional at the time of surgery. So your second appointment, or the first surgical appointment, you're ready to not only place the implants, but during the first surgery, you're going to place the implants, you're going to place the multi-angled, multi-unit abutments, you're going to finalize the temporary prosthetic and do the final pickup, take a final impression or a digital impression record of the temporary prosthetic so that we have a digital copy that we can now work from to make changes. We're not starting from scratch. Every time you want us to make a change, we're working from the exact point that you're seeing, which is the provisional that's in place. And we can also, if something breaks, we can provide an immediate duplicate. No surprises is the goal for the first surgical appointment, but it's amazing when you think on the first surgery, you're going to be able to accomplish all of that in one visit. So again, from a business perspective, the differentiation is huge for a business. You have to make your practice stand out from the person down the road that has the billboard on the side of the street. I know we've all seen it where, implants for $1,000, $1,500, depending on where you're at. How do you differentiate yourself so that you can charge that $3,000, $3,500 fee that we talked about? And in reality, it's actually very easy. We're doing this over and over and over again. And we see this with our DIOnavi customers. And first of all, it's just a matter of making sure the patient knows what you're delivering and delivering something that they want. So first of all, obviously patients want restorations that look and function like new teeth, right? But they want a procedure that's comfortable. When they see, when they think about, being cut open and having, sutures and things like that, that's less comfortable for the patient. They're less likely to move forward, where we can tell the patient we don't have to do sutures. The procedure's fast. Patients don't like being surgery or in the dental chair any longer than they have to. As I mentioned, we're doing these procedures in minutes because of the digital planning ahead of time. So patients love that and they will pay for that. They don't want to be coming back over and over again. And we can cut, whether it's the DIOnavi full arch or the DIOnavi individual, we can cut those appointments down significantly. And they want immediate teeth. 80% of our DIOnavi cases, we can plan with an immediate temporary provided in the box as part of the case, which is astounding. Now, you as a clinician obviously need to decide if you want to place that in an immediate temporization or not, depending on depending on how much initial primary stability you feel like you had, where the tooth is. So you would make the ultimate call on whether or not you want to do an immediate loading on that restoration, but we can digitally plan it and provide it 80% of the time, certainly on all of your anteriors. It's something that makes your anterior cases phenomenally easy for the patient to come in, get the procedure, they get their custom abutment and the temporary provisional all at the same time, screw retained provisional. Patients will pay for that. They love that. And obviously clinical success. And the fact that you can tell the patient, hey, I'm doing a full digital simulation of your treatment before I even sit down and start. People, especially today, understand the value of this digital simulation. And again, they'll pay for it. They want high-tech procedures. They want these digitally planned things. And they love, again, get in the chair. We hear it over and over again with DIOnavi cases. The procedure is so fast and so comfortable. It's really common to have a patient say, "Oh, we're done. I just barely sat down." And you're like, "No, we're done. There's your tooth. Take a smile. Look at your temporary, tooth, or anterior tooth that we just replaced for you. Come on back, and we'll do the final on such and such a day." They're blown away, and they will pay a higher price for that. And it's actually very easy as you talk about it. So we talked about this 35 excess capacity, and obviously a common question then becomes, well, that's great, but I don't know if I can fill, if I could fill that excess 35% capacity, that'd be great, but I'm not sure I can. So let's stop and just take note of where you're at for a minute. So I just like you to ask yourself some, honest, if you give yourself some honest answers to these questions, and that's, how many implants are you referring out a month? Stop and really think about it. How many times are you saying, here, I'm going to send you down to this periodontist or this oral surgeon, down the road? How many total are you sending out? Regardless if you're doing your own implants now or not, are you sending any out? If you are sending out, why? Why are you referring those patients out? Why are you not keeping them in? And would you keep more of those patients in your practice if you knew that, hey, I can place this upper posterior just knowing I'm not going to hit the sinus, right? That's one of the common fears that result in offices sending out a patient. With DIOnavi, you don't have that fear. We're going to plan that for you. If I want to do the sinus lift, but I don't know if it stresses me out, I'm worried about it. If I could do that easily and safely, would you keep more patients in your practice? If you knew you could do lowers without hitting the nerve, if you knew you could place on a narrow ridge and know you're going to end up with that implant perfectly placed in that narrow ridge of bone, how many more would you keep in your practice? If you could do anterior, in the aesthetic zone and know that they were going to turn out great. And this could be done with virtually almost no deviation. 0.04 degrees of deviation is the typical for a DIOnavi placed implant through a DIOnavi guide, which is unbelievable. That's at the apex of the implant to be 0.04 degrees off of the digital plan. It's almost nothing, which is why we can do the immediate temporization, why we can provide the custom abutments ahead of time, why you can do the full arch so much easier is because of that accuracy. So how many more cases could you keep in your practice? Most practices, as they stop and they think about these questions, realize that, geez, I could probably use that 35% capacity just in the patients I'm already sending out. If not, we'll talk about marketing ways that we can help you get some more in there, but the chances are you can handle a lot more here as well. And if you're coming from a group practice that you run, how many more implants would you do if you knew that the other associates in your practice could do the same treatment with the same predictable outcomes that other providers in your practice are giving. The beauty of DIOnavi is it takes out so many variables, it increases the consistency between clinicians. So if you are in a multi-provider facility, it's perfect because now more providers can place implants with consistent, fantastic outcomes. So you start at your own pace. Today we're going to be talking mostly about full arch, but again, we can provide DIOnavi for anything from your singles all the way up to your full arch cases. We've done more than 500,000 of them now, so we are not new to this. We are far and away the leaders when it comes to doing this type of workflow, and that's why it's so much easier and so much better. So let's bring this all back around and think about what does this do for your practice if we're able to differentiate you, help you maintain a higher rate, help you use more of that excess capacity to do implants. What does that mean to your take-home pay? And this is where it gets really exciting, right? So if you were to add 10 DIOnavi, just single implants per month, 10 implants, and that's not very many, especially when you think about that's not necessarily 10 patients. That might be 5 patients, actually a little bit less than 5 patients. Our average DIOnavi surgical guide is 2.3 implants per guide. So on average, you're going to be doing at least 2 implants per guide. So we're only talking about fewer than 5 patients that you could keep in office instead of sending out. Just those alone, if you did those DIOnavi procedures, that would add another $276,000 net income to your take-home pay. That's after we consider the increase in overhead for the implants. So that takes the average dental take home from of $190,000 to $466,000, almost $500,000. For most people, doubling your income can be life-changing. I mean, that's amazing. And that's just really can be accomplished by keeping a lot of those people in practice that you're already sending out. If you were to do just one DIOnavi full arch case, so we'll talk about just one per month, and those 10 implants, that is going to add another $240,000 to your net income. So if you did 10 DIOnavi singles and one full arch, you're now up to $740,000 in take-home pay. It's, again, significant. And that's not hard. That's just one arch and 5 implant patients that you typically would have sent out. We want, and those numbers are great and those are big. If you're happy with that, that's fantastic. With our partnership offices, we want to go even bigger. Our goal for a partnership office is to get you 5 full arches per month through our combined marketing efforts and a partnership between us and your practice. And what we find just by nature of trying to drive 5 full arches, the marketing is going to automatically, obviously not everybody that comes in for consultations, the right candidate for full arch treatment. So you're going to be picking up other single implant placements as you see these patients for consultations on the full arch. So you're going to almost naturally pick up a handful of singles. So let's say as a partner office, you pick up 5 full arches, which is our goal, just to the handful of singles that we talked about. That adds an additional, and I said, yeah, and I bet that's correct, additional, not total, an additional almost $1.5 million in revenue, net income, take home each year. That takes you to up over, you add the 190,000, the average on top of that, and you're now 1.6-ish million of take home pay for our partnership offices. So again, what we're trying to do is revolutionary, and we're looking for the partner offices that want to partake in that. The way that the DIOnavi full arch works and the way the DIOnavi works, if you're new to it, is very similar. You're going to capture your records. You'll fill out your online prescription form and upload those records to our portal. There's no special software that you need. You don't have to do any of the planning there in office. No special knowledge of computer-aided design. You upload that to us. We do the full plan, notify you that the plan's ready for your review. You then review the design, again, whether it's a single simple implant or if it's full arch, and just verify that, yes, those implants are where I want them. That's the length and size I feel comfortable with. If everything looks okay, we fabricate it all. We send it out to you in your case in a box, and you get the box has everything you need. Again, whether that's a single implant placement or everything you need for the full arch case, which will be the things that you'll be covering in the full arch course today, all the way through the provisionals, multi-angle abutments, the whole bit. So that when you sit down and perform the surgery, you've got your step-by-step instructions and all of the pieces that you need. Can't get any easier, right? For those of you who become DIOnavi offices and become certified on the DIOnavi, we will be adding you to our DIOnavi.com search site. And what this is a patient-facing webpage. Again, our mission, and I take it very seriously, to help you maximize clinical and financial success. And that includes, helping drive patients to your practices. So we have patient-facing web pages to educate patients on why the DIOnavi procedures are unique, why they're comfortable, fast, all the benefits that the patients like. And when you become a certified provider, you start popping up then on the search feature. So if somebody's looking at DIOnavi, they say, okay, who are the doctors in my area that do this? You'll pop up and they'll be able to see you and find you. In addition to that, for our partnership offices, I'll touch just a little bit more detail on the Partner One offices or the Full Arch partnership programs. We're going to be doing a lot of push marketing as a partner with you to drive patients to your practice. And with that, there's a commitment. It's a big commitment on our part, and it's a commitment on your part. And so for a partner office, the goal is going to be that we're going to do 5 arches per month every month over a 3-year period. And we're going to ask you to pay for 20% of those arches ahead of time. So you'll be basically prepaying for 22 arches, I believe, ahead of time. And with that commitment that we know you're serious about it, one, you need to pay for those things anyway. You get the discounted rate on the arches. And we're going to open up our partnership marketing program, where we actually use our marketing agency and provide and pay a specialized marketing agency to not just have your office popping up in Google AdWords and things like that. I know a lot of your practices, you're probably already doing some amount of marketing. Most people that I talk to say, well, I'm spending a couple $1,000s a month on marketing right now, and it's not doing any good. That's where we come in, because we actually, with our partnership and the money that we prepay to a specialized experiencing marketing agency, an actual national marketing agency, we then put together this specialized content, target your market, put together all of the marketing collateral, all of those things, and we bear all the maintenance and administration costs of that actual program. You, for your half of the partnership, you do need to pay for what we call the reach or the click-through rate. So we're going to be paying for the marketing agency, all of the management of the partnership, all the management of the ads, modifications on a weekly basis, content changes. You would just be paying for the reach, and you're going to be paying probably about $3,500 that you would pay directly to the marketing agency, depending on what areas you want to target and what kind of a rate you want. You're going to need to probably plan on a minimum of $3,500 for us to get that joint target of 40 new potential patients per month. Some offices want to do more. If you want to try and do a little bit less, you can try and get away with a little bit less, but usually we find is you got to plan on that $3,500. And so we can talk more about what that partnership looks like. Actually, DIO, we're paying a significant chunk more than that, just so you know. The reason we need the commitment from you is our costs to get this set up and to hire and pay all the marketing fees and the agency fees and the actual professional administration of this program is a lot higher than that every month. But all you would have to pay for is the reach. And this is an actual practice from a couple of weeks ago that shows what we're able to do. So I can show you how effective this actually is. So we're tracking several things, and this is a real-time dashboard that you have access to as one of our partner clinics. So you can see exactly how all of this is progressing in real time. But some certain things we want to look at is the visibility. So for this practice, for this range of time, so this is over a 3-month period, to kind of give you an idea, over a 3-month period. This is the first 3 months of this practice, by the way. So what we find is you got to plan on this partnership, and the marketing agency kind of ramps up, right? We get it into effective immediately, but there's kind of a churn of getting the interest, getting the patients scheduled, getting the patients into your office, getting the consultations done, and getting the work going. So we plan on about a 3-month ramp up cycle, but this is actually the first 3 months for an actual office, just so you can see what we actually did. So during the first 3 months, we had 6,500 impressions, and this is actually practice in a very small, kind of a rural area. So we had 6,500 impressions, which is well above our target of target impressions. Acquisition, this is where it matters. Of those 6,500 people, those impressions, we pushed this practice in front of 6,500 people who were looking at implants and implant-related, full arch related questions online. We pushed this practice so they saw this practice 6,500 times over 3 months in that targeted area. Of those 6,500 views or times they've been seen, we got 713 clicks. That's a click-through rate of 11%. The industry average click-through rate for this kind of marketing is under 1.5%. So we're getting basically 10 times the click-through rate by using this agency that we work with that you would be getting on your own. So again, the partnership's drastically beneficial and helpful. So that's a huge number that we're getting those all click through. And we got 35 conversions actually to the program. So, and excuse me, I said over a 3-month period. This is actually over a 1-month period. This is May to June. So excuse me. So over 1 month, we got 6,500 views, 713 clicks, and 3,500 conversions. So almost right on target, even though this office is in the early stages of that ramp up, we're almost exactly at that target of 40 that we told you about, which is phenomenal. So the office, basically the cost for the office that month, the click-through rate that the office pays is $3,500, almost exactly on projections. We got the 35 conversions we talked about, and really, are driving, tremendous value to the practice. Some other things that we track that are kind of interesting to keep track of is we're competing with the big boys. So a lot of offices say, well, geez, I want to get into full arch, but I got a Clear Choice in my area. I got this other facility in my area that's already marketing hard for full arch. I'm afraid I won't be able to compete. Again, this is where we as your partner can help you compete because we're actually monitoring in each one of your areas what the top search words are. And even if that's in a competitor, so for example, here's actually a competitor who does a lot of full arch marketing, big billboards on the side of the road in this area. So people who search for the name that's on those billboards, where these people are spending $20,000 a month for billboards, when they search that office name, guess who they see instead? They see our partner clinic instead as the first person that they see. Same thing with Clear Choice and all of these others. So not only keywords that they search like full arch implants or how much does an implant cost, but they search for one of your competitors that does full arch treatment, we're going to push you in front of them. So I could go on, but this kind of gives you an overview of the types of things that we do for this marketing partnership that's phenomenal. And really, when you look at it, it makes those numbers of our targets of driving additional patients to your month and that additional revenue and that additional net income, really you start to see how that's not far-fetched at all. We're doing it, and this is how we do it. So last piece I want to cover before we turn over the time clinically, and that is what do you need to do the full arch kit or to do full arch treatment specifically. So to do full arch treatment, you really need all of the surgical kits. You need all 5 Navi kits, plus we recommend you, of course, have the flat master freehand kit on hand just in case you need it. In addition to that, since some of you might have some of those pieces already, you do need this full arch, what we call an accessory kit or accessory package. Now, this isn't like a kit that comes in like a plastic container altogether, but these are pieces that you need to have and tools that you need to have on site in order to do the full arch restoration. So it's just a handful of individual items. These are the pieces that we'll need to make sure you have. So if you're already a DIOnavi customer, you've got all of the surgical kits, and you just want to start doing, a full arch case here and there, then we just need to make sure that you've got this accessory kit. It's under $1,700 to get all of these pieces, and we can get those out for you. I did allude to the benefit and the reason that we like to use the UV activator for full arch treatment. And there's a huge importance in the UV active for this. And that is obviously the goal with full arch treatment is we want to, as often as absolutely possible, we want to give screw retained immediate teeth to the patient. And the UV activation, the chairside UV activator, becomes particularly beneficial where we want to do immediate loading. And the reason is that, first of all, if you're not familiar, the the UV activator, chairside UV activator, is the only chairside UV activation system available in the world. And it's proven to drastically increase the healing time and the integration of the bone into the implant, and not just increase the time, but it actually increases the quality of the bone that attaches to the implant. All of these things are really important for full arch treatment. Now, so just an example, what happens when we treat a UV active implant, it literally changes the polarity of the surface of the titanium. So instead of pushing away or separating or being a separate item to the blood, surrounding blood, it literally becomes a magnet or a sponge, and it soaks that blood into the implant. And with that blood contact to the implant, it drastically increases, again, the speed of the integration and the healing and the quality of the bone. So this little video, I'll play it one more time. You can see these are other implants that are active implants. These are not just standard implants versus a chairside activated implant. And you can see the effectiveness of the DIO UV activated chairside implant is exponentially better than anything else out there on the market. And we can get into more details of why that is and what the difference is a separate discussion if you're interested, but it's significant and it's unlike anything else out there. Now, here's why this is particularly important. It's really important to all implants you place. It's the activated, chairside activated is benefit in all cases, but specifically in full arch where we want to do immediate loading. And the reason is, here's the typical graph of the stability of an implant over time. Okay, so we've got really three lines that we're looking at. I'm going to start with this middle line, or this purple line, because this represents the primary stability of the implant at the time it's placed. So at the time that we place the implant, assuming you get good primary stability, good torque, starting at day one, we've got great initial stability. But as we know, almost immediately, certainly within 24 to 48 hours, the bone starts remodeling around the implant from the trauma as it gets ready to, get the blood and everything there that it needs to start integrating into that new titanium in the bone. Literally, that primary stability will start to drop off starting immediately. And so as we look at over time, if you look at the primary stability over the first 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, you'll see it's dropping off pretty rapidly. At the same time, your secondary stability, or the osseointegration of the implant, is increasing. And that starts essentially at day one or shortly thereafter. And the bone starts to integrate into that implant, and it takes over or replaces the primary mechanical stability that we got mechanically when we placed that implant. And so that starts increasing over time. At about week 3.5, so between week and 3-4, your implant stability will start going up again. For the first 3.5 weeks, the implant stability is dropping. Starting at about the 3.5 weeks, we start to come back up. So that this top line represents the overall stability of your implant. So the overall stability of the implant starts off high. It's dropping off as the primary stability drops. And then as the secondary stability starts to kick in, we start to increase the overall stability again, into where now we hit week 7, 8, where we typically would go in to replace an implant or to restore an implant, because we know that we've got that full secondary stability, the osteointegration has taken place. But we hit this real fragile point around week 3 and week 4. By using the DIOnavi chairside UV activated implants, this is what we see. We can't change the primary stability. It's a physical characteristic. It's going to drop off. All right. But what we can do is we shift drastically the speed that secondary stability starts to take place. So that osteointegration starts to happen. So you can see the shift in this red line to where starting immediately, that integration starts taking place much faster. The healing starts making place much faster. And so by week 2.5, the secondary stability is already surpassing the primary stability. And by week 3 or 4, usually your most fragile and scary time in implant placements, we're up to maximum stability of that implant already. And so this is critical because, one, it allows the overall stability drops much less. And so, again, especially on full arch treatment where we want to do immediate loading, where we obviously don't want to have failures, the UV activated implant, this is why we strongly recommend it. It's going to be worth its weight in gold in success, speed, and your ability to consistently deliver great outcomes to the patient. So certainly recommend that, and that's, again, kind of a quick overview of why. Just another picture of a non-treated implant versus a treated implant with an actual droplet of blood. And you can see again how that treated implant becomes basically a magnet. Again, it changes the polarity, literally is what it does. And it becomes a magnet to that blood, and it soaks it into the threads instead of kind of repelling it or waiting for the bone to kind of force its way in. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what we can do and why we're recommending what we're recommending. Just as a final thoughts from a financial aspect, obviously, what is this going to cost? So I'd like to cover that real quickly, just so you have some ideas. So first of all, if you're brand new to DIOnavi and to DIO, we have what we call our 1, 2, 3 program that we've launched for July of this month and for Q3. Option 1 is for under $2,000, so $1,999. You can get 10 implants, a flap surgical kit, and then we can add on anything else that you need for under $2,000. Everything you need to get going, the implants, the master kit, the Swiss-made master kit, and then we can sit down with you and decide you want to do guided placements, which guide kits do you need, and we can add on to that. But you can start literally for under $1,000. For under $3,000, our 2 promo, $2,999, 10 implants, but this time they're UV activated implants with a master kit. And along with this, we let you rent, since you do need a chair side activator, we let you rent the UV activator for $199 a month. And after 2 years, you own the UV activator. So under $3,000 plus, you could rent the UV activator. If you keep it for 2 years, it becomes yours. And we can get you going with the UV active implants. Option 3 is what we call our experience package. So $3,999, and the idea is this lets you experience everything that DIO has to offer. So we give you, again, 10 implants, a freehand surgical kit, everything you need to start trying to place some of our implants freehand if you'd like. In addition to that, we give you our guided DIOnavi surgical kit, and we give you 3 more implants with the guide. And one of those, including a custom abutment and immediate temporization. Again, the idea is you can experience everything we have to offer, from freehand to guided implants to a guided implant, all the way through immediate temporization with a custom abutment. So under $4,000, 2 surgical kits, really 13 implants, 3 surgical guides, and one of those guides includes a custom abutment and immediate temporization. So again, it's a great way to experience what we have to offer if you're just getting going. For those of you who are ready to jump in a little bit bigger and really take advantage of this full arch that we're talking about today, we've got a great starting package where we can do a UV active implant with full arch readiness. It comes to $25,810. And what that would be is 50 UV active implants, 6 surgical kits. So all of the surgical kits that I mentioned, all of the guided kits plus a freehand kit, the chair side UV activator that you own, that's included in that package. There is no rental. The full arch readiness accessories, so all of the little extra bits and pieces that I mentioned, all of those things that we can finance that over 3 years, 0% interest. So it's $717 a month is all you're talking about to get going. And you have everything that you need to start placing not only DIOnavi UV active implants, but doing full arch treatment as well. And then just pay for the arches as you go. So $717 a month, and you're ready to really start taking advantage of those business options we mentioned. For our partnership program, if you happen to be interested in taking advantage of that partnership program, then this is the way that works. It's super excited. So again, our partner goal together is to do 5 arches per month. On top of that, you're going to get a discounted rate per arch. We give you all of the bits and pieces that you need, surgical kits, all of the items, a big inventory of implants up front. So you've got everything on hand that you need as well. So you'll have those all in your office. Set you up with the patient marketing agency, get all the patient marketing going through the partnership program that I mentioned. All of those things, it's just over $3,800 a month over 36 months. That's all. And again, that includes your first, I think it's for 22 arches are actually paid for in that ahead of time. So it's, and then once those arches that are prepaid are used, then you would of course just buy the additional arches as you go. But by you committing to those upfront arches, $3,800 a month and some change is all, gives you everything that you need. And that covers the cost of the treatment that you're going to be providing for the first several cases. So this is a great option. Again, talk to us about the partnership program. We can only do so many of those in each area, but it's really exciting. If you think your office is a good fit for that, let us know, tell us about your office, and we can decide together if that looks like it makes sense to partner up. Again, hopefully that kind of gives you an overview from today's perspective in today's course about us, how we want to hit the DIOnavi mission, which again is we just want to help our customers run the most successful implant practice possible, financially and clinically. So what I've covered is the ways that we want to help you succeed financially. So at this point, I'll just turn the time over and let you look at how we can do this clinically as well.